he brought out many parallels with Plato's laws. Others have said maybe there's a parallel with Crete law there.
Like about more than 50% is all Hellenistic elements in the Jewish laws.
We also got the idea of a sacred national literature from Plato's laws. Some of the laws in the Bible are, a lot of them are from Plato's laws, but a lot of them we just know from Athens mainly.
Now I just want to move on to your next book, that is Plato and the Creation of the Hebrew Bible. Now, I don't have any question regarding this. The book is amazing. And while I was reading, by looking at the similarities between Plato and the Bible, that is something amazing. Like about more than 50% is all Hellenistic elements in the Jewish laws. So now I want you to tell us about this book, and I will not be asking any questions. I will just listen to you. So if you don't mind, just give us a summary in 10-15 minutes about this book, and also about why do you think that only Plato is in the game? Why not the other lawgivers, like there are many, Hammurabi or the Egyptians or the Minos, the Great of Crete? So why not them? I mean, you can start with the summary.
Well, certainly. I started working on Plato's laws and the creation of the Hebrew Bible in about 2011, after I read a book by a gentleman named Philippe Wattenboom, who is Belgian, I believe. He wrote a book called Argonauts of the Desert that cataloged extensively parallels between the biblical writings and Greek literature. And he brought out many parallels with Plato's laws. So I thought, I have to investigate that. He was only looking for parallels. I wanted to explore more fully parallels and differences both. I examined every law in the Bible, every law in the Middle East, laws of Hammurabi and Esnuna and all sorts of weird lawgivers, Hittites, you name it. All the Greek laws of Athens and Crete, so on and so forth, and Plato's laws. And I compared them by every category to see what parallels they had with the cuneiform laws of Mesopotamia, what parallels the biblical laws had with Greek laws, and which were stronger. And in some cases, there were greater parallels with the Middle East, with the laws of Hammurabi. In, I'd say, more cases with Greek law, and quite often specifically with Plato's laws. Now, there is one instance in which there are strong parallels with the laws in Greek, in Crete. In the laws of Gorton, which were posted on, I think, a temple wall on the island of Crete, and that had to do with the laws of inheritance. If the husband died and there weren't any offspring, then they'd have to be married to a brother, and so on and so forth. So others have said maybe there's a parallel with Crete law there, the laws of Crete. But those laws are also found at Athens, and they're also found in Plato's laws. So I think that we should really look to Athens and Plato's laws first, since that's the only real instance with a parallel with Crete, and everything else seems to come from Athens. Some of the laws in the Bible are, a lot of them are from Plato's laws, but a lot of them we just know from Athens mainly. Some laws we know from Solon, who you've already mentioned. I think the grandfather or great grandfather of Critias, from whom he heard the tale of Atlantis, and Solon supposedly heard that from the Egyptians. Well, Solon was a great Athenian lawgiver. He wrote their first major constitution and laws. And there are a couple of laws in the Hebrew Bible that really show use of his laws. So they were more broadly read than just Plato's laws. They did a lot of research in international law codes. Now that's something that Plato recommended. So did Aristotle, and so did others. He said, if you are going to put together a constitution and laws for a new, say, a Greek colony in some new location, then you should spend time and research the laws of other nations, international laws, widely, to know what they've done and to take whatever is valuable from them. So that's what the biblical authors did. They read Plato's laws, of course, but they also read all sorts of other law codes. That's clear from the parallels. Now, where did they do that? Well, at the Great Library of Alexandria, they had a whole section of their library that was devoted to laws. So they could read the laws of every nation there. And actually, that's when they created the books of Moses, they immediately translated into Greek. And those Greek books of Moses, which are called the Septuagint, they were placed in the Great Library of Alexandria. That's why the king of Egypt invited them to Alexandria to produce this edition. And that collection of Mosaic laws actually went into the same section of the library where they did their research. Because King Ptolemy Philadelphus, he wanted his library to have, all the laws in the world as a universal resource. They already had all the Greek laws, and they wanted to have the laws of the Jews as well. So they traveled to Alexandria, they did their research, and they wrote the laws of Moses there in 270 BC. They also, in addition to regular laws, they have quite a bit of constitutional material in the books of Moses. Now that is interesting because in the whole range of Mesopotamian literature of the ancient Near East, there's not one scrap of constitutional literature. They didn't need them because they were tyrants, they were dictators. The king of Assyria or Babylon, what he said was law. You don't need a constitution. But the Greeks, they ruled themselves. They were democratic. So they wrote up the laws regarding their government, and constitutional literature was very important to them. There's another chapter in my book. There's one chapter dealing just with constitutional parallels. And, clearly the Mosaic constitutional material comes from Plato's laws and other Greek sources. There's another chapter about laws in general. There's another chapter where I talk about how the Greeks tied in their constitutions and laws and the origins of their legal system into their stories. When they told a foundation story of a new colony that was created, they would have this narrative, and they'd also explain how their expedition leader wrote the Constitution and laws and founded the temples and did this and did that. It was all tied together in a story. You don't have that anywhere in the ancient Near East, but you have that throughout the Greek world. So there's another indication that the Jews were involved with. They had lots of Greek influences. they could only take place in the Hellenistic era, which means the time after the conquest of the East by Alexander the Great. So all this constitutional material shows that the books of Moses had to be written after, say, 325 BC, when Alexander was. So, so I go through all this legal information, comparative with the Greek world, the ancient Near East, and I conclude that Plato's Laws was highly influential. Now, my last chapter, I think, is in many ways the most interesting in that book, because I show that not only did the Jews and Samaritans use Plato's laws and the creation of the books of Moses, but they also got the idea of a sacred national literature from Plato's laws. There's no concept of a sacred national literature anywhere in the ancient Near East or anywhere else in the Greek world, only in Plato's laws. He had a system of government he invented there that it was government by the gods. It was divine rule. It's what we would call theocracy, which is a term that Josephus invented. He invented theocratic government. He basically invented the idea of a kingdom of God with divine laws that were written in the ancient past, with rulers who were theologians and inspired and in contact with the gods, with divine holidays and celebrations every day, and indoctrination from cradle to grave, using this national literature of sacred texts that they could only read these books because they contain the divine laws. They contain the foundation stories. All the books in their national library were consistent with their theocratic government and their story of divine origins. Well, all of that is exactly what we have in the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament, the Jewish Bible. And it's clear that the Jews get their idea of theocracy, and they get their idea of the Bible as a sacred national literature. That all comes right out of Plato's laws. So far, other scholars really have not commented on that. The reviews that I've had have been very favorable from scholars who have reviewed it. But a lot of scholars today they just think it's too far away from their current views. The whole idea that Plato could have somehow influenced the laws of Moses and the Hebrew Bible. And so it kind of has a select reading audience at this point. At some point, scholars are going to have to sit up and take notice, and I think it'll set the world on fire. But anyway, there are very advanced ideas in this book on Plato's laws and the creation of the Hebrew Bible, and it's a good book. It's a good read. If you read this book, it's like getting a PhD.
Okay, thank you very much, Russell Gmirkin. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure.